Yes, I salute you all. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. So basically today we are under land law and we are under land law 2. And today we are going to look actually it is exemption to the doctrine of indivisibility of title or impeachment of title. You get? Because we have seen that indivisibility, it says that a title or a certificate of title is conclusive evidence of ownership. Now here we are going to look at the exemption to the general rule, whereby we say that a certificate of title is not conclusive evidence of what? Of ownership. And basically we are going to first start with the first exemption, which is fraud. You get? Fraud as the first exemption to indivisibility of title. Basically fraud, I've said that section 59 provides that a certificate of title is conclusive evidence of what? Of ownership. But there comes that it is conclusive evidence of ownership once it is not as a result of fraud, as portrayed under section 64. Section 64 of the RTA, that is the Registration of Titles what? Act, whereby they say that it can be a conclusive evidence of ownership once it is not as a result of fraud. You get? Read section 64. Then actually there is also a good case of Aketa Farmers and Millers Limited and another versus Kuria Mureba. You get? Milton and another. That case provides for that element that it is a settled law and beyond. Actually the law looks beyond registration and registration of the title and indivisibility, and it impeaches the indivisibility of a registered proprietor, its interest or account because of what? Fraud. You get? So basically note that in mind, and we are going to look at the definition of fraud. Fraud doesn't have a specific or a certain definition, but however, certain cases, courts, they are the ones that define what fraud is. For example, in the case of Frederick Zabwe versus Orient Bank and 5 others, the court defined fraud as as a generic term embarrassing all multifarious means which inhuman ingenuity, or whereby a human can diverse and which are resorted to by one individual to get advantage of another by false suggestions or suppressions of the truth, which include surprise, trick, cunning, or unfair way by which another one can cheat the other. Then that is the case Frederick Zabo. Then there is also a case of Kampala District Land Board and another versus Vanesio. That case also defined what fraud is, whereby they defined fraud as dishonest dealing in land or share practice intended to deprive a person of interest in land, including unregistered interests of what? Of land, basically. So note that in mind, that those cases give us the definition. But however, fraud is a big topic whereby it has incidences, various incidences of what? Of fraud. And basically it's what we are going to look at. And one of the incidents, it is acquisition of special certificates of title under false pretense as one of the first instances. This is provided under section 70 of the Registration of Titles Act, which provides the application of special titles. So this section 70 gives the right to anyone who has custody of the title and who knows the circumstances are arising or surrounding the loss of a title to apply for a special certificate. This deals whereby you have lost your certificate, it has got banned, or you have lost it, but it deals that you are the honest, you are the true. So you can apply to the registrar and it gives you a special what? Certificate of title. And here this section has been misused by various people, whereby those fraudsters obtain special certificate of title for other people's properties and eventually transfer them to their names and sell to third parties. So basically, if they obtain special certificates by false pretense and they transfer land to third parties, that certificate of title can be impeached, can be cancelled by the registrar. So that is one of the first element of what? Of fraud, or the instances of what? Of fraud. Basically, the second instance is the forging of powers of Anthony with the intention to defraud. Powers of Anthony are provided under section 130 of the Registration of Titles Act. So it provides that you can appoint, or a donee can give powers of Anthony for someone to lease, to transfer his land to someone, to a third party. Powers of Anthony is like to delegate someone to act on your behalf. Those are powers of Anthony. You get that you say that, you know what, I've given the other one, I've delegated. But remember, if you are to give powers of Anthony, it must be in a signed manner and in the signed document. You get it must be attested to, and even the person that is given powers of Anthony, while transferring or while dealing, he must show that he's acting under powers of what? Anthony. It must be clear that he's acting under powers of what? Anthony. Read section 130 of the Registration of Titles Act. And under this, we have the case of Conde Matthias Zimula versus Yarugaba Moses and another. You get that case provides for the powers of attorney, whereby here the second defendant certificate of title had indications that the title deserved investigation before any purchase from her. The purchaser, who was the first defendant, had a duty to search for the instrument, that is constructive notice, as you shall see the doctrine of notice. So this would show that there was no valid transfer of title from the name of Cody Matthias Zamula to Nampija Van Grace. You get, he had a duty to satisfy himself that Nampija had a valid what? Title. You get. So the use of, and the conclusion is that the use of powers of attorney for personal benefit is illegal. You get, it is very, very illegal. That is the case of Cody Matthias Zimula versus the Arugaba Moses and another. Read that case. So another form of fraud that we are going to look at, it is the concealment of true consideration of the transaction. You get, the concealment of the true consideration of the transaction. So basically, it is an attempt, generally, it is an attempt whereby to defeat the payment of stamp duty or payments, paying less of it, stamp duty and also taxes. Most purchasers of land usually disclose the value of the land which is less than the true consideration paid to the seller. Such act of dishonesty amounts to fraud. You get. There is a case of Betty Chizito versus David Chizito. Betty Chizito versus David Chizito. That case provides or gives that element. You get, gives that element in a way that it provides that here it was in the dealing of what? Dealing whereby there was no, furthermore, actually court held that declaring that there were no developments on land in order to evade payment of taxes, and therefore defrauding the government of revenue also constitutes true fraud. Therefore, the court held that the transfer of land into the names of the respondent was void for fraud. You get. That is the case of Betty Chizito. Then another instance of fraud, we have the instance of double titling of title, whereby the registrar can issue two titles at once, so they can cancel one. Double titling of title, whereby if there is more than one, there is existence of more than one title must be what? Cancelled. Read the case of Mutiaba Muhammad and others versus Kayondo Nasiwa Janat, whereby the question before court, it was for the determination of which of the two certificates was valid and which was to be cancelled. You get, as whereby the two certificates cannot coexist. You get. So court had to investigate and to understand how the two titles had been created over the same piece of what? The same piece of land. And at the end, they cancelled one which was brought under fraud, and they left the other. So read that case. Then we have forging of land titles. Forging of land titles, it is made by fraudsters, whereby land titles are being forged, even up to date. Realize that there is a land that is having more than one title, but the other title was forged. So that title is not conclusive evidence of what? Of ownership of land. Then we have illegal removal of caveats. Illegal removal of caveats, however much the court mandates that the registrar can issue removal of a caveat. Read section 100. Actually, caveats, they are provided from 100, 123. Then 129 provides for the removal. These sections are from the Registration of Titles Act, provides for the removal of caveats. Now here we have seen the legal removal of caveats. When we say that most of the fraudsters have taken advantage of section 129 of the RTA, whereby the removal of a caveat by the registrar mandates that issuing the caveat a notice to show cause why the caveat should not be removed. But however, the notice is sent to the caveator by post. But in most cases, the caveator doesn't remove the what? Doesn't get the notice. You get? And all the notices are never posted. Realize that actually the registrar for him considers as long as there is a receipt of the post office, he mandates that the notice has reached the caveator. You get realize that the caveator most so doesn't get the notice. And here the registrar, once the 60 days expires, and removes the notice. You get, unfortunately, the registrar cannot be blamed because he's acting under the law. But most of the cases, the notices don't reach the caveators. Realize that the removal of the notice was illegal. You get, so note that in mind as one of the area of what? Incidences of what? Of fraud, basically. Then, when you go further, to back up that illegal removal of caveat, still we have the case of Kayondo Ronald and others versus Kasule Ronald. You get, that case provides for whereby court emphasizes that it will summarize the position of law insofar as the facts of the case are concerned. You get the law. And when you read that section, the removal of caveats, 129, prescribes the legal process for removal of a caveat. You get, this legal process is designed to offer protection to a caveator's alleged what? Alleged interest in land. Upon receiving the notice from the registrar, which means it must also be used to protect the interest of the caveator, not to act upon his disadvantage. So note that in mind, whereby realize that the courts have held that the irregular removal, under that case, that the irregular removal of the caveats amount to fraudulent conduct. You get, so note that in mind. Then another incidence of fraud, we have disregarding equitable interest on land. Disregarding equitable interest. Under land law 1, we talked about equitable interests. So if someone sells to you land and disregards the equitable interest, they may be lawful and bona fide occupants, because we have land ownership, we have tenants by occupants. You get the lawful and bona fide, provided under section 29 of the Land Act. You get, provides the lawful and bona fide. And the section 237 provides for them the forms bona fide occupancy under article 120, 237 clause 80 and 9 of the Constitution provides for that. So disregarding those equitable interests also mandates to fraud. It is an instance of fraud. You get, whereby for lawful occupant, for you to sell land or transfer land, you must disclose that there are equitable interests on land, maybe family members, maybe lawful, maybe bona fide what? Occupants. So note that in mind. And we have the case of Horizon Coaches Limited versus Edward and another. Under that case, actually, they provided for that a purchaser who obtains registration with the intention of defeating the unregistered interests of the tenants on land is guilty of fraud, and the registration is obtained through fraud and is liable for the title to be cancelled. You get, so note that in mind. It may also be spousal equitable interest in family land, whereby they say that a husband to sell land must have the consent of the wife, as portrayed in the case of Brother Moses versus Abdul Salam and others, whereby they say that the intention to cheat unregistered spouse of their own of the existing right on the land, it amounts to fraud. When you sell land without noticing your wife, it mandates to fraud, and that transfer of land can be cancelled by the registrar. So note that in mind. So basically those are some of that is one of the first exemption, which is fraud as to impeachment of title, or as to the exemption to indivisibility of title. But other than that, thank you for listening and thank you for watching. Stay blessed. Continue. We are going to see more other exemptions in the other videos. So thank you very much.